This year's prize in economic sciences goes to Abhijit Banerjee, Michael Kremer and Esther Duflo for their experimental approach to alleviating global poverty. Jakob Svensson, expert from the committee, please explain to our viewers, maybe not all of them have followed the press conference, explain quite generally, what is this prize about?
Well, this prize is about a new approach in development economics or in economics research more generally. And it's an approach that helps us better identify ways or policies that we can use to reduce global poverty. So that's the short answer.
And would you say there is a metaphor that you could use to explain their discoveries, their findings?
Well, I think the metaphor in this case would be that you start with a broad question and then you break them down into much more detailed and more manageable questions. And then you make sure you answer those more detailed questions using the very best empirical methods you can to establish that you're saying something about the causal effects about poverty and poverty alleviation. And that's essentially what this new approach is all about.
Could you give us an example of this?
There are many examples. So one example, a favorite example I like is a very early study by Banerjee and Duflo. It was a study that was aimed at trying to change the way teachers were teaching to better match it to the students' needs. And students usually in this scenario came to school with very poor backgrounds. And there was a set of experiments, field experiments, that helped them evaluate and redesign this program into becoming a very effective program to help, in particular, kids that are falling behind. And now this program is used in many parts of the world, both in India and in Africa. And last time I checked, I think the estimate was that it's reaching more than 60 million children.
How would you say these findings can affect our lives?
Yeah, so I think it's a scientific approach to identify the best and most cost-effective ways to reduce global poverty in all its different dimensions, so on education, on health, on various income-generating activities. And of course, these approaches is particular aimed at helping the very poorest of us here on the world. And I think it has an enormous impact if more and more governments and international organizations took this approach more to heart and used it in their normal operational activities.
And what makes you personally excited about this year's prize?
Yeah, so this is an area of research I am myself involved in. I've been using the same type of approaches also for quite some time, and I think it's, for me, it's just, it has opened up new doors to explore ways to understand underlying reasons or underlying causes of poverty and ways to combat it. So I am super happy about this year's prize.
And Esther Duflo is the second woman ever to get to be awarded the prize in economic sciences. Yeah. How come there are so few women so far?
Yeah, so as has been said many times before, I think one of the main issues is that there's most discoveries that are rewarded the Nobel Prize are discoveries that happened way back in time, at which time there were actually very few women active in professions like economics, but also in many natural science professions. Nowadays, we see that is changing, but before that is transformed into, for instance, Nobel Prizes, it has taken a bit of time, but I think now going forward, I think that type of question will be hopefully less and less seldom asked, is my hope.
And would you please tell us a bit more about each laureate?
Yes, so Esther Duflo, now you have to correct me, she was 46 now, I think she turns 47 this year. She was born in Paris, in France, and she studied in the US, and she's a professor at MIT in the United States. She's born to one of the other laureates, she's married to one of the other laureates, namely Abhijit Banerjee. And Abhijit Banerjee studied he's from India, he studied in the US and is also a professor at MIT. And Michael Kremer is an American, also studied in the US and now a professor at Harvard University. And all three of them have been heavily involved in this field-based experimental approach in development over the last 20 plus years.
What did they say when they received the call?
So we called, I don't think we haven't managed to reach Michael Kremer, but we woke up Esther. My sense, she was in a shock. It was, to be honest, it was very hard to hear what she was saying. Then she called for Abhijit, and we could hear Abhijit slightly better, but even him, I think, were a bit in a shock. So I think, the typical thing is, of course, most laureates are significantly older, and this group of laureates this year. So my guess was that they were not expecting to get a call from them about the Nobel Prize this year.
And finally, can you explain, please, the main impact of this discovery or these findings in 30 seconds?
Yeah, the main impact is that it's already now giving a set of recommendations in different areas. So when it comes to improving education, and in particular how you get more kids to learn better in schools, or when it comes to getting families in low-income countries access to preventive methods. Already now we know of a set of interventions or policies that can make an impact. Then it's in essence up to policymakers and others to make sure we use these insights and knowledge to make a difference.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.